Mark from Michigan writes me and says, Scientific Audiophile, can you recommend an integrated amp under $1,000? I wrote him back and I said, get the Yamaha A-S801. And he wrote me back and said, I don't have a subwoofer and it doesn't have enough oomph. I said, where'd you hear that from? And he sent me this link.
Typically, we like to start out on the more affordable side of a product line and work our way up, but with Yamaha, we kind of aimed for the stars and forgot to return to earth.
So far, Andrew Robinson seems to have a really personable style. Seems like a really nice, decent guy. Whoa! This guy does audio, video, tech, design. He does 4 different things. This guy's really smart. If he doesn't like the AS801, he's probably got a good reason.
The AS801 is the last stop in Yamaha's entry line of integrated amplifiers.
What's this at recovering audiophile? This is a real dig at every audiophile out there. You don't recover from good things. You recover from bad things. You're a recovering alcoholic. You're a recovering drug addict. There's no such thing as a recovering philanthropist. So saying recovering audiophile, you're really taking a knock at all audiophiles. And I'm familiar with these kinds of people like Andrew Robinson. They don't listen to anything. All they're about are charts and graphs and measurements. So when I see recovering audiophile, the only thing I think is that he wants to cure audiophiles.
I think you want to give it a cure.
So Andrew Robinson is clearly not a nice guy. He's a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yamaha's internal ESS Saber DAC has support for both DSD and high-resolution PCM audio through its USB input, and the optical and coax.
Whoa, 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 what are we looking at here? Is this his listening room? There are more reflective surfaces in this room than in a carnival house of mirrors. This is not a listening room. This is a disgrace. And are those Dynaudio Evoke 20s sitting right in front of a window? Those are rear-ported speakers, and unless you plug the port, which significantly reduces your bass response, you're going to get absolutely terrible sound. So we're barely 90 seconds into this video, and I can tell you right now, Andrew Robinson is not a home theater or acoustic designer. He's a lifestyle designer, and he's not interested in quality of a room.
Style aside, how does the 801 sound? Straight away, there is no mistaking the 801 for anything but a Yamaha product.
That's really good because Yamaha prints Yamaha right in the front of every one of their products.
Yamaha just has a sound, and
Yamaha doesn't have a sound. Yamaha has their engineers make an amplifier that is built to produce a certain amount of wattage based on a certain design, A, B, D, whatever they're making, and produce that product. They don't tell their engineers to give it a Yamaha sound, but this guy isn't stupid. He probably is going to show us some kind of measurement that shows Yamaha either rolling off certain frequencies or bumping them up.
Starting with the bass, I would never classify Yamaha products as bass heavy or bass rich. They seem to prefer speed, articulation, and detail.
Yamaha prefers speed, articulation, and detail. I wonder how they told the engineers to do that.
If you need a little bit more oomph, the 801 does have that subwoofer output, but
the subwoofer output is not for the amplifier. The subwoofer output is actually for your speakers. If you don't have full range speakers, and most people don't, there's a subwoofer output so that you can buy a subwoofer to help your speakers out. They're not to help out your integrated amp or your amplifier or your receiver. They're there to help out your speakers. So I'm a little bit surprised that our recovering audiophile isn't showing any charts or measurements, which is exactly what I would expect from someone who doesn't want to be an audiophile. So I did jump over to Audioholics and just check out what they said about the AS801, and according to them, it's pretty impressive, and it's flat from 10 to 20,000.
On its own, and when driving either the Dynaudio Evoke 20, Heco Aurora 700.
I'm having such a hard time getting over the crap of this room. Not only are there a lot of reflective surfaces, which makes it terrible for audio. I'm certain his RT60 is around 75 or 80. But it's got more white than most people's bathrooms. This is not a good room to watch video. This is a terrible room to watch video.
The 801 definitely came off as a bit light, even in
Light. Let's see where he goes with this one.
our room, which can boost bass to a degree. Now,
No, your room can boost bass to like 10 degrees. And I think the other issue you have, Andrew Robinson, is clearly the speakers you chose. Let's take a look at the Dynaudios, which have a 6 3/4 inch woofer, which is not going to go very deep, regardless of their spec saying goes to 40. Yeah, it can get to 40 with a ton of distortion and with a huge amount of roll off. The PSB Synchrony T600s, let's take a look at this graph. Oh, look, huge drop below 100 hertz. Why? Because they're expecting you to put a subwoofer on this thing because they're only 6.5 inch drivers. There's nothing wrong with the design of these PSB Synchronies. They're great speakers, but they aren't designed to go down to 20 hertz. And if you're not going to get down to 20 or even lower, then why even bother make a great sounding speaker from 100 hertz up? Bring in a subwoofer to help out that low end, not to help out the amp, to help out the speaker. And PSB did that, and Dynaudio did that, and Hecko did that with their speakers as well.
moving up to the mid-range, because of that lack of depth down low, the mid-range feels just a tad thin.
I'd really love to have Andrew Robinson explain that. So by having very little bass, according to him, as we've already shown, it doesn't. But let's say he's right. Let's say the specs are wrong. Let's say the measurements are wrong. Let's say what I've heard from the AS801 is wrong. He's right because his room's so fantastic. And all of a sudden, now he's saying by lacking the deep bass, the mid-range sounds thin. Now, if you're boosting one area or not and reducing another, or maybe you're not boosting the mid-range and just reducing the bass, you're not going to have a light, thin mid-range. You're going to have a heavy mid-range. This guy is talking himself in circles.
To clarify, I am not saying the 801 completely lacks depth or weight. It just isn't as weighty as others like the Audiolab 6000.
The key here with Andrew Robinson is he speaks with authority, as if he really believes what he's saying.
It's not a lie if you believe it.
But the truth is, he's just full of shit.
Which brings us to the treble. This I was not prepared for. I have always found Yamaha products to be more excitable up top.
Again, there's no Yamaha sound, and there's no Yamahas that are just more excitable up top.
Now, if you have bright speakers, the 801 isn't going to tame them, but it may bring a touch of finesse to them without absolutely breaking their spirit.
Wow, that's really important, because when you buy an amplifier, the last thing you want to do is break your speaker's spirit.
This presentation from the 801 is in line with, if not just a touch behind the speakers themselves.
I'd love to know how the Yamaha engineers designed the amplifier to bring the soundstage just a little bit behind the speakers.
Width has never been an issue for Yamaha amps, but I was surprised.
And width, oh, Lord knows, this is not anything about where you place your speakers to get the correct soundstage. No, this is your amplifier that gives you width in your soundstage. Maybe you should just be able to put your speakers like right directly in front of you and get just the right amplifier. Or maybe the width is too wide in a particular amplifier and you need to bring your speakers closer together so that you don't over-widen the soundstage. This Andrew Robbins guy knows his shit.
It will put you several rows back of the pit rather than give you a front row seat.
Once again, the Yamaha engineers screwed up this amplifier because they designed it to put you a few rows back of front. And now you're probably like around 7 or 8 rows behind, according to Andrew Robinson. Phew! I'm glad the issues with this amplifier, he's telling you, is with the engineering of it and not with the crappy room he's listening to it.
Silent separation throughout the soundstage was good. It was definitely better when listening to smaller ensembles or more modern pop music. I found that as the music got a little bit more complex, its grip on detail lessened.
That's a real gem there. As the music got more complex, as I guess more instruments got involved, the grip on detail lessened. Let's play that again.
I found that as the music got a little bit more complex, its grip on detail lessened.
In Andrew Robinson terms, the issue is too many notes.
Too many notes, Your Majesty.
Exactly. Very well put. Too many notes.
I guess that Yamaha sound always struggles with Mozart.
It really does come down to whether or not you like Yamaha's particular flavor of sound.
Yamaha doesn't have a sound.
Consistency, it's there, whether you are using its analog or digital inputs. In comparison to the costlier Audiolab 6000A, which we've only just gotten in-house, I have to say, as of right now, I prefer the Audiolab.
He prefers the Audiolab to the Yamaha amp, probably because the Yamaha doesn't have as much oomph down low that he likes. Now, the Audiolab has half the wattage at twice the price of the Yamaha, so most likely Audiolab went to their engineers and said, we're going to make an amplifier with half the wattage and twice the price of the Yamaha, so we want each watt to have a lot more bass boost.
And I feel somewhat the same about the Musical Fidelity M3SI. It is the more confident amplifier when compared to the Yamaha, but at almost twice the price, it should be. For me, the Yamaha probably pairs better with a wider range of speakers than the Musical Fidelity.
So I'd love to see the Musical Fidelity engineers listening to that, because they create an amplifier with more power than the Yamaha A-S801. According to Andrew Robinson, it's a better amplifier, but the worse amplifier with less power pairs better with more speakers.
As good as the M3SI is, it can be, at times, too revealing for some speakers.
So Andrew Robinson is telling you that the M3SI can be too revealing for some speakers. So please remember that if you're buying a really good amp that's really good at revealing the music, it's not going to pair well with a lot of speakers. This is a fascinating part of the video. For 10 minutes, you speak to someone who's off screen. You never see her. Andrew Robinson never brings her in front of the camera. It's just one person talking for 10 minutes with Andrew Robinson mansplaining a few times about what she heard wasn't really what he heard, etc., etc. So the recovering audiophile offered absolutely nothing in the way of measurements or charts, and his explanation of what makes a good amplifier basically was him talking himself in circles the whole time, talking about this false myth of a Yamaha sound. I'd love to put Andrew Robinson into a controlled A/B environment to see if he can hear the difference between a Yamaha, a Denon, a Pioneer, or a Marantz, and I'm telling you, he can't. That's all from Scientific Audiophile, and please like, subscribe, and comment for this video.